And ultimately, Connie, what folks want to know is, why Kenya? Why did you pick to go there? Like, what the heck is that about?
Yeah, yeah. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. So tell me, like, why did you pick Kenya, right?
Well, it's a really interesting story. The story started about a year ago. I was at a conference in Kelowna, Winfield, right over here. I was at a conference and sitting around in a break. I don't think you were there that day, but we were sitting around in a break, just doing some chatting, and Dr. Ken comes up to me, out of the blue, to this group, and he says, or my memory of what he said was, so are you done with Kamloops? And it took me a while to wrap my mind about that, because I love Kamloops, and I moved to Kamloops 5 years ago, really consciously. I moved there on purpose. I've been a nomad all of my life, and I moved to Kamloops because I wanted to live in a place that I would love to live, and I've always loved the interior of BC. So I moved to Kamloops really intentionally to be there and to start a center, and I've done that. I've been there for 5 years, and I love Kamloops. So when he asked me that question, I thought, no, and why are you asking? But what had happened was he planted a seed, and once a seed is planted, it begins to sprout. And I wasn't able to dislodge that, and it kept sort of festering away at me. It's about, okay, so if I'm not supposed to be staying in Kamloops, what is my next move? Where am I going to go? What is my ministry going to do? Because my ministry, I've been in ministry now 11 years, and it has taken me from Calgary to Edmonton to Toronto when I co-founded a work there, to Winnipeg to take over a work, to Kamloops to start a new work. So I've done ministry in every realm of ways to do ministry. And so I thought, well, what would my next step be? And so what was kind of interesting about this whole procedure is that I didn't just jump in and try to make something happen, which is, normally what I would do, and just sat in the uncomfortableness of not knowing what it was. So that was going on. And then there was a seemingly totally unrelated incident sort of going on at the same time, and that was that a friend of mine that I dated when I lived in Toronto 10 years ago emailed me out of the blue after my separation from my husband, and I get this email from this fellow, and he came for a visit and decided to stay. And so I was in the question of, did I want to be in a relationship? Why was this person here back in my life again after all of this time? And so what I know is that to pay attention, because there are no coincidences. So when things happen, there's a reason for things to happen. So I was sort of in those two questions, and I went to a conference in February in Denver, and while at this conference I was participating in a visioning session. And visioning is different than visualization, where visualization you have an idea of what you're going to do and you think about it. Visioning is just being in meditation and opening up to your higher self, revealing a bigger picture to you. So I'm sitting in this visioning session, and I heard a voice in my head. Now, this wasn't your little inner voice that whispers in your ear something new, or it wasn't an idea. This was an actual voice in my head. And the question that this woman that was leading it asked was, what is your next step? And the voice that I heard in my head said, Africa, and Jeffrey is the bridge. Jeffrey being the man that had moved out. And that really shook me, because I've always loved things African. I've never been to Africa, and I thought, Africa? Ew. I'm supposed to go to Africa. So that's fine. I came home and talked to Jeffrey about it, and he said, hey, if that's what Spirit wants us to be doing, well, then I guess that's what we're going to do. But another really interesting piece of that happened was the final night of the conference at Denver. There's a banquet. And I walked into the banquet room, and I hadn't set up to sit with anybody. And this woman comes up to me and says, you've got to come and sit at our table. And so I said, sure, no problem. So I walked over. I was sitting at their table. And this other woman says, no, you need to sit beside me. She said, and I had met this woman, but I didn't know her. She said, you need to sit beside me because I need to get to know you better. So I sit down beside her, and it turns out that this woman is the minister in charge of global services for United Churches of Religious Science. Well, United Centers for Spiritual Living now. And she's the head of global ministry. So I ended up telling her, she said, well, what are you doing? Where are you at? And I said, well, apparently I have this idea of maybe going to Africa. And she said nothing at the time. We went away from that and had set up a time to Skype, called her, we were Skyping one day, and leading up to this, we were having ideas about where we should go. And Jeffrey was saying, well, we should really go to Nairobi, and all of the reasons why we should go to Nairobi, Kenya. And in his mind, the reasons why, because it's an international center and it's a stable country, and he knows the language there because he's from Uganda, but he knows Swahili, and all of the reasons why we should be, why that would be the ideal place for us to go to start a ministry. So the day that we were Skyping, and she said to me, she said, I've got to tell you about an email I got yesterday. She said, I know you don't want to go to Kenya. And I just went, oh my God. She had gotten an email the day before from a man in Kenya who had discovered our teaching and wants to become a minister within our teaching, and he needs somebody to go teach him. And at the same time that he is putting out a call to have somebody go teach him, I'm getting a message that I needed to go there to teach. I mean, it was just one of those absolutely perfect moments in time.